Hello and welcome to the Guitarist Reviews, where today we're going to be looking at Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Oh boy. Here we go. Right, I'll say up front that I don't like this movie, and I haven't ever since I was 15 and it was first released. There's going to be a lot that I pick apart in the next half hour, so if you love this film and don't want to see me tear it apart, and especially if you like Ms. Emma Watson, just stop watching and please don't comment. So, the movie begins with Harry playing with his wand in the middle of the night and hiding what he's doing under the covers and keeping it from his uncle. Also, while he's playing with his wand, he's looking at some illustrations about how to use it correctly, and when he does it right, a load of white stuff shoots out the end. But anyway, the next day we see the arrival of Aunt March, who it seems is yet another Dursley, and if possible even meaner. She wastes no time in insulting first Harry, then his father and mother, which turns out to be a bad idea because Harry uses his amazing powers of puberty and hormones to make her blow up like a beach ball. This leads to one of the most hilarious scenes from the movie, where the disaster dominoes just keep on falling.
Don't you dare! Sorry!
Harry goes upstairs and stares at a picture of his parents before deciding to run away, and he sees a large big black dog in the bushes before he accidentally summons the night bus, and we begin to see the real problem of the third movie. It cut a lot of things from the original book, and a lot of it was really quite important to the plot, and it decided that the best thing to do, instead of sort of merging scenes together to make the plot make sense, was to add scenes that made no sense or went on too long for reasons of comedy. Sure, this scene does actually have some funny moments, but when you realise that it likely means that you'll never find out the true story of the Marauders, it makes you wonder why they didn't just cut this scene down and add some more dialogue later on. We arrive at the Leaky Cauldron after an interminably long driving sequence, and see Fudge again, where he basically takes up time being cryptic. We have a largely pointless scene where Harry spends a few minutes fighting a book, and we cut to the next morning where we can hear two people arguing downstairs. Yes, it's Ron and Emma. Yeah, I'm not calling her Hermione from this point on. In fact, I'm also not going to call her Emma. Ms. Watson is whining at Ron because he hates her cat. And there's a one-er where we see Fred, George, Molly and Arthur all in quick succession. There's exposition about how Harry is in personal danger because of Sirius Black, and we're on the Hogwarts Express with the trio and R.J. Lupin, who's asleep. Harry tells his friends about Black and they big up the supposed villain with how crazy and awesome he is. The train stops and the Dementors appear. I have to say that I don't like the Dementors. I like some of what they've done, things freezing as they go by, flowers wilting, but you can see what they look like underneath the robes. The whole point of the terror surrounding them in the books was that you couldn't see under their hoods, making whatever was making that horrible, rattling, breathing noise all the more terrifying. Now it's on display all the time. Remember, when in doubt, nothing is scarier. The hands look creepy, but they don't look anywhere near as creepy as I can imagine them looking. And the lidless eyes and lack of nose don't scare me at all. They just make them look comical almost. Anyway, Lupin is apparently capable of a wordless Expecto Patronus charm, and scares it off. He feeds the young teenagers some chocolate, and they discuss the feeling the Dementors give them, and arrive at Hogwarts none the wiser. But enough genuine character development, time for more pointlessness! For some insane reason, Quaron decides to add a Hogwarts choir, singing a version of the witches from the Scottish play. It's utterly ridiculous in every way, and we're also now introduced to the new Dumbledore, after Richard Harris's untimely and unfortunate departure. I hate to be that guy, but I don't like Michael Gambon's Dumbledore. I mean, partly it's the writing, which in this movie suddenly takes a turn for the ridiculous and melodramatic. The attempts to make scenes more gothic and dark instead do what such attempts usually do and make the film look even sillier for it. Especially that stupid
Turn on the light.
comment. Seriously, just piss off. Anyway, something wicked this week comes as we see that Dawn French is now the fat lady. Christ, this is pointless. Anyway, they go to the dorm and share another pointless comedy sequence where they share some sort of sweet that makes them act like animals. We're approaching about 10 minutes straight here of scenes which haven't added a single thing to story, character, plot. It's just aggravating, especially when the third book was my favourite book. I mean, hell, the video game was a better adaptation than this. The next morning we get an establishing shot of the Whomping Willow's new location, no longer on the grounds themselves, and then we're inside the divination room where Sybil Trelawney is doing some fantastic overacting. See, this is appropriate though, since it basically mirrors the character in the book. It's like Gilderoy Lockhart in number 2. He was larger than life on the page and then larger than life on the screen. Anyway, there's the beginning of a running gag where Ms. Watson keeps improbably popping into scenes because of the time turner, but really they make no sense. I mean, does the time turner grant her temporary teleportation in these movies as well? Does she just fade in and out of existence wherever she's supposed to be at any one time? Whatever. There's a lot of stupid here and I need to move on. Really, the divination scene is just to make us nervous about that dog Harry saw, and also, let's say hello to expository black guy. God, I hate this edition. All he does is exposit in the most overblown narration possible. His dialogue is so cringeworthy it makes me want to start reorganising my bookshelves rather than listen to it anymore. And no one ever explains who he is! He just seems to show up whenever someone needs exposition. Wherever there is uncertainty, he'll be there! Wherever there is unexplained plot devices, he'll be there! Wherever there are blindingly obvious Deus Ex Machinas to describe, he'll be there! The amazing Mr. Exposition! Anyway, on to the trio going down to Hagrid's first lesson as a teacher. We have some more clues about Ms. Watson's time turner, and we follow Hagrid into the Forbidden Forest to meet hippogriffs. Some hilariously hammy acting once more.
I think they're funny.
And in the ongoing joke, Neville gets attacked randomly. At the very least, Jaco is genuinely funny here, I have to say. But anyway, we have hippogriffs to meet. Buckbeak. Hagrid gives us some very clear direction about what not to do around hippogriffs for those who like to accuse him of being a bad teacher, and Harry steps forward to meet Buckbeak. All goes well, Harry gets to go for a ride, we get some very unsubtle foreshadowing about Ms. Watson and Ron for later books, and Draco gets savaged because he's an idiot. Draco starts laying it on thick, and suddenly Sirius has been spotted, and now we see the return of the amazing Mr. Exposition! Now with added ham and cheese. But now it's time to meet the Boggart. Now this is one of those interesting scenes because it changes quite a lot from the original book. Also, the questions about the Boggart are really quite interesting. Fine if you have a fear of, banshees or spiders. What about abstract fears? Voldemort fears his own death, and according to JK, he'd see his own dead body, but I'm sorry, that's not scary. It might be creepy and disconcerting, but it's not scary. I mean, I used to be scared of the dark, a very common fear. Would the Boggart actually make the room dark, or would it only effectively blind me for a moment? And how would I make it funny? I know how I'd make it less scary. I'd want to make it light again. That was what the spell would do. How do you make the dark, an abstract thing, less scary? Anyway, we see Ron fight the Boggart, and of course it's a spider. But then we see Parvati, who turns her greatest fear of a snake into something that is even scarier. Harry's up and he turns it into a Dementor, which I guess could be perceived by Lupin as it having been Voldemort. I'm sorry, I'm trying to justify a later conversation, but we'll get to that. We see what is very obviously a full moon when Lupin steps before it, and the scene is over. Now, I don't like this change, and you could probably start a drinking game over how often I say that during this review, because in the book it isn't clear what it is. It's described as a glowing orb. I mean, basically the moon without the context of being at night, or clouds or anything. The movies make it too obvious. I mean, I know it's for the benefit of the morons in the audience who couldn't figure it out, but the problem is they take out more plot-essential dialogue later to make room for the funny. It just rankles with me. Anyway, the next day the students are off to Hogsmeade, but Rudolph the Red-Nosed Potter can't go because his uncle didn't sign the slip. Instead of going to Hogsmeade, Harry talks to Lupin, who makes some references to Voldemort. And even with the rather weak justification already made, I don't think Lupin would mistake the thing it turned into for Voldemort because it's so obviously a Dementor. Anyway, Lupin talks about having known Lily and how Harry reminds him of her. It's okay, mostly, but then we come back to the Gryffindor Tower where the fat lady's portrait has been slashed and she's missing. Now this scene was terrifying in the book. You don't know what's happened or what's going on, but Dawn French just ruins it with some serious overacting. I mean, really, the scene is one of the creepiest and most scary scenes of the original, and yet here it gets ruined by some good old-fashioned narm.
Sirius Black!
Anyway, they all sleep in the Great Hall as Hogwarts gets sealed off, and Gambon, yeah, I don't feel like calling him Dumbledore in this scene, makes an awful awful speech about,
For in dreams we enter a world that's entirely our own. Let them swim in the deepest ocean or glide over the highest cloud.
ugh. I never know who to blame in these cases. His acting isn't exactly bad, yet the writing is so awful. Anyway, Severus takes over the Dapster class and teaches them about werewolves. Alan Rickman doing his typical dramatic pausing. The scene doesn't have much bearing on anything except to show us that Ms. Watson knows what a werewolf is.
An animagus is a wizard who elects to turn into an animal. A werewolf has no choice. With each full moon, when he transforms, he no longer remembers who he is. He'd kill his best friend if he crossed his path. Furthermore, the werewolf only responds to the call of its own kind.